tried to give some understanding and acceptance to why we should consider engineering problems as a probabilistic problem or a random problem. Because we see that natural or man-made phenomena are all random. And some of them may have large scatter, some of them may have smaller scatter. But scatter is something that we cannot avoid. It has to be there. It's inherent in the system itself. So if you are going for a design or an analysis which is more accurate, then we have to incorporate this effect. And there are many practical applications of this, especially in space and aircraft designs. So we talked of these functions, 3 functions for describing the randomness. The first one was the probability distribution function. Here, so we discussed 3 functions. Here this capital X is the random variable. This probability distribution function we have talked of for a single random variable. Later on when we go to random processes, then we will be talking of a family of random variables where there are more than one. So I'd like to give the definition for the extended form. Here for the single one, we have f of x as the probability of capital X being less than or equal to the state small x. If there is a single random variable, we just write it like this. But if there are more than one, to remove any ambiguity, we put this capital X as a suffix here. Now suppose we are dealing with 2 random variables, x and y. Their states are small x and small y. In that case, we define the joint probability distribution function. In the most general case, we write it like this: f with subscript x and y, both, indicating that we have 2 different random variables here. Then the state x comma y. So the first one is the state for the first one here. The second one is the state for the second one. This is defined as the probability of capital X being less than or equal to small x. Simultaneously, I can write this as and y being less than or equal to small y. If x and y are random variables with the same sample space, if they are from the same sample space, suppose omega is the sample space and they are both from the same one, then I can replace this by in an intersection. So this is an intersection of 2 different events, x being smaller than small x and y being smaller than or equal to small y. So this is the joint description. So this is the joint distribution function. Correspondingly, we have the joint density function. We can have Pxy, small x, small y, the state. The derivative of Fxy, I have not put the suffix here, but for completeness, it should be put there. Partial derivative with x and y. Okay. Now you can see a couple of things here. We have seen for a single variable, we have seen that the probability this probability here, x, can be written as integral from the lower range to the current range of Px dx. Okay. If we are looking for the probability of occurrence of say x between x1 and x2. Is the size good enough to see from that place? Okay. Then this can be put as, I think you can tell me how to get that. If you know the probability density function, we can find the probability of x lying between two ranges, x1 and x2. How will that be? Integral from x1 to x2 of px dx. Okay. Now this can be extended to the bivariate, the two random variables and its probability. If we take the bivariate probability density function, suppose we do this integration, minus infinity to plus infinity, double integral minus infinity to plus infinity, dx dy. What are we going to get? This gives us now the probability of capital X and Y in the full range from minus infinity to plus infinity for the first one, from minus infinity to plus infinity for the second one. So this should be equal to, this is a certain event now. Capital X and Y cannot be beyond this. So this will be always equal to 1. Now look at this, integral pxy dx from minus infinity to plus infinity. What will this give us? If you are integrating x over the full range, then it comes out. So what you will get here is just py. Okay. So similar operation can be done with the distribution function also. There is a density function from the bivariate information for x and y. By integrating over x, we have taken it out, and what is left is the univariate distribution. So this is a very strong information, and this is the information that is already contained inside this. Okay. So this is something that we'll need later on. Okay, so this was the probability distribution function, density function just now I mentioned. Probability function also in the corresponding fashion can be defined for two different random variables. Then we talked of the expectation or the average value. Here also, we can define it for two different random variables. Just now, this definition is for a single random variable. The expectation for two random variables, we can extend it in the following fashion. For the first one, the expectation of f of x, the function of x, is that function for the state variable multiplied by the probability density function integrated over the full range. Now, if you have, say, a function of random variables x and y, both, then the expectation of this is defined as the double integral over the full range for both these variables. Oh, sorry, this is plus, as f of x, this is small x. We distinguish between the random variable and its state by writing the uppercase and the lowercase. So small x and y, then the joint probability density function x, y, then dx dy. Dx dy. Okay. And the same thing about the central moment also. When you go to the central moment or the central moment, there also the same definition is valid. Okay, I think we had come up to this, and then we wanted to talk about the characteristic function. This is another way of describing the random variable. Here, this characteristic function is a function of theta, which is the angle. And this gives us the spectral decomposition of the variation in some manner of the probability of the random variable. Here, it is the expectation of e to the power I theta x. So, the function now, which we are writing as a small f here, becomes e to the power I theta x. So, for the single variable, it is defined as integral over the full range e to the power I theta x px dx. And if you remember, there is a Fourier transform of the probability density function. This definition from mathematics is the Fourier transform of px. If you take the Fourier transform, we can define it like this. So, and whatever be the form of px, this characteristic function always exists. It is always bounded. It will never be unbounded. So, by the inversion theorem, once the characteristic function is known, we can find the probability density function. So, this is an equivalent information, either the probability density function or the characteristic function. If one is known, the other one can be found by using this type of relation. Now, there is one property of characteristic function gives a lot of ease in finding certain type of information, but somehow it is not as popular as the density function. Here, we can see that if we set theta equal to 0, then if you set theta equal to 0 here, e to the power I theta x becomes 1, and you are integrating px dx over the full range. So, this would be equal to 1, that we have already seen. This is a certain event. So, here m theta at theta equal to 0 is 1. Further, if we differentiate this with theta n times, in that case, on the right hand side, I will need that expression again. Oh, sorry, I went the other way. Here, we are differentiating this with theta. So, on this side, everything else is a function of x except this e to the power I theta. So, this is the only one that gets differentiated. These are constants. So, we are differentiating inside the integral sign, and what we are going to get is the derivative of e to the power I theta again and again n times. So, when it is differentiated n times, I x comes out n times. So, you will have I to the power n taken outside the integral as its constant, and x to the power n, because it has to be inside as x is varying inside the integral. Now, if we set this derivative at theta equal to 0, in that case this e to the power I theta x becomes 1, and what we are left with is I to the power n multiplied by x to the power n px dx, which is the same as the nth moment of x. Okay. So, we can find the expectation, nth ordered expectation of x by differentiating the characteristic function. Of course, this I to the power n is hanging out, has to be divided here. And as we know from our experience, differentiating an expression is much easier than integrating an expression. So, if the characteristic function is known, finding the expectation of any order is much easier than finding it from the probability density function, because there you have to integrate, here you just differentiate. One more property here. Consider this characteristic function, and let us look at theta being small and the expansion of this at theta equal to 0. The Taylor series expansion at theta equal to 0, we call that as the Maclaurin series. So, here with theta equal to 0 as the center, this is the expansion. This should be the value of m at theta equal to 0 multiplied by theta to the power n divided by n factorial, then the nth order derivative of m theta at theta equal to 0. Now this derivative we already know is I to the power n into e to the power the nth moment. Okay. So combining this I with theta here, it becomes I theta to the power n divided by n factorial e to the power expectation of x to the power n, and this m equal to 0 is 1. Now, if you look at this, what this means is that to get the full value of the characteristic function, we need the expectation from the first order to second order to third order up to the infinite order. We need all orders of the expectation in some combination here to get the characteristic function. So, and characteristic function is an equivalent information for the density function also. So, to get the density function as well as the characteristic function, we need the infinite order of expectations. So, we can see the amount of information contained in one expectation, the probability density function and the characteristic function. The complete description of the characteristic function as well as the probability density function. To get this, a complete set of moments are required, meaning from first order up to the infinite order. Just like the other probability functions and the moments, the characteristic function can also be described for more than one random variable. Exactly in the same fashion, characteristic function is the Fourier transform of the probability density function. So, for two random variables, we take the bivariate probability density function and then e to the power I theta 1 x plus theta 2 y and take its expectation. It would be something like this. M of theta 1 theta 2 is the expectation of e to the power I theta 1 x 1 plus theta 2 x 2. So, this gives us the second level of description. Again, to remove the confusion, if there is some confusion, then we need to put this x and y as the suffix. Many a times in the actual engineering applications, we do not use too many random variables, too many different groups of random variables. So, in that case, it is understood. You don't need to write this suffix. So, that suffix becomes silent. Another thing here, as we do not have enough time to discuss all these things, if the probability description, the probability density function, distribution function or the probability function of a random variable is known, then it is possible to obtain that particular description for a function of the random variable. By the way, I couldn't show the nature of the distribution function yesterday because we didn't have the board. So, consider a situation like this. There is a state axis starting from minus infinity to plus infinity and the distribution function like this. For a continuous random variable, it will start like this and it will go to 1 asymptotically. As it becomes infinity, somewhere it will touch 1. This is the way it varies for a continuous random variable. If x is discrete, in that case, the distribution function will have the following shape. This is x, and let us say these are the values that capital X is allowed to assume. In that case, f of x will start, this is the first one, let us say this is the first one, second one, x2, x1, x3 and so on. Then it will, from infinity it will come with 0 value. Here it will have a spike. Then again it will be flat from here to here as the random variable cannot take any value in between these, then there will be another step, and that's how it will go. It will go in steps till it reaches the full range, and somewhere here it will have the value as 1. So as it goes, attains all the values, it will become 1. These values depend on the type of nature of the random variable, these steps. These need not all be equal. These would be different. So when you look for the density function, this continuous one can be differentiated. But here when you differentiate this, it does not become very meaningful. Between this range and this range, P of x would be 0, and here there will be a spike. There will be another spike here, 0 again, and so on. Okay? So that's why we do not use this to describe a discrete random variable. We use the probability function, P. This we use only for describing a continuous random variable. Now, about the function of a random variable. This is important because in the vibration context, we will have the excitation as the external input, which is random and for which we know the description in some fashion. Then the response that we are going to get is a function of that excitation. So in that context, consider some y as a function of a random variable x, for which we have some description given to us. As x is random, this is also going to be random. Now, can we define the distribution function for y? By definition, this is the probability that capital Y is less than or equal to the state small y. Now, this capital Y is actually a function of x. So this should be equal, less than or equal to small y. Then from the basics, suppose the density function of x is known, then can we obtain this particular function? The probability of f of x when this is always less than y. Can I write this as integral of px dx, and how do we decide the range? How do we decide the range? In which range this should be integrated? Remember, we had seen that if you have some range from x1 to x2, then this probability that it lies between this range is integral x1 to x2 of px dx. Okay, this we have seen. So what about this one? Can we do something? Basically, we have to set the limits in such a fashion that this event is true. So, when is this event true? When this function is less than or equal to y. Is this right? What you are looking for here is that this should be below this value. Okay? If we integrate for all functions of x, where this is less than y, you can find the distribution function of fy. And by differentiating, you can get the density function of fy. Is this okay? So, if in some fashion, some way we are able to find this information, write y as a function of x. If the characteristics of this is known, then we can find the probability density function, or here the distribution function for the function y. So y is the dependent random variable, x is the independent random variable. If the description for the independent one is known, it can be found here. There is a general relation let me give one example here. Suppose I plot it can be on this side also. Suppose I plot capital Y against small capital X, some function. Suppose it is something like this, something of this type. Now, if I set a level, like this is the level that has been set. So, if I set a level, let us say here, Y, I am drawing this line. Can you identify the range where this event is true? Here I am, okay, rather than this Y, I am writing this as f of x. Okay. So, can we identify the range? Are there ranges where capital Y is less than small y or equal to small y? Yes. In my figure, from here up to this point, it is less than small y or equal to, again from here in this range, and like that there will be number of ranges. So, this is what is meant by this. This integral has to be carried out in all these ranges wherever this event is true, and then you will get the distribution function of y, and from that by differentiation the density function. Okay. Usually it is not very easy to evaluate. Most of the times this form may be very complicated and complex, and so finding out the different ranges is not very easy for practical problems. And so there are other ways also for simple forms. There are other simpler methods of doing it. I just wanted to tell you that if we can express one random variable as a function of the other one, if the description of the first one is known, we can find the description of the second one. Okay, this much for the random variable. Now let us talk about the random process. We have talked of the random variable as the outcome of a trial, where we are associating some function capital X to that outcome small omega. In many cases, we do not get a single outcome, but it is a function, like the example that we talked of, the wind velocity. The wind velocity is a function of time. It continuously changes with time. It is not a single event, it is a continuous event. So, there are many such problems. In fact, most engineering problems are like that. So, that particular outcome depends on some parameter. Like the wind velocity we can call as a function of time. Time is the parameter. Also, it will be a function of space. Like if you are selecting a point here or a point here or a point somewhere else, that should also change the value of the velocity. So, those x, y, z as well as time, these are the parameters on which the velocity depends. So, for such cases, a single random variable is not enough. This type of outcome we call as a function, and there are different names. It is called as a random function, random process, sample function, stochastic process. There are a number of names. But to qualify, just as any outcome is not a random variable, similarly, any outcome associated with a random phenomena cannot be defined as a random process. Okay, I have not brought in the definition here. The definition is like this. After this, we'll go back. So what this indicates, a random process X, which is dependent on the outcome of the trial omega. And there is another term embedded here. X depends on both omega as well as t. It is random because of omega, not because of t. This omega, it is a function of omega also dependent on t. So we call this t as the indexing parameter. This need not be time always. It can be something else also, but in vibration problems usually it is time, but there are others also. I'll give some example of other type of indexing parameter. So here the random process X of omega t, where omega belongs to the sample space capital Omega, t belongs to a set capital T, is defined as a set function of two arguments, omega belonging to capital Omega and t belonging to capital T, where omega is the sample space of the family of random variables x dot t. This dot indicates that that particular thing is active. It can change. So we can have omega 1, omega 2, omega 3, depending on how many outcomes are there for the trial. And this is fixed here. T we call as the indexing set, and small t is the indexing parameter. The randomness comes because of this omega. This one just permits the value to change. Okay. So a random variable is generalized into a random process. If this t is absent, it does not change with time or anything else, then we call this as a random variable. If it changes with some parameters, which does not bring in the randomness, but allows the values to change, we call this as a random process. Okay. Now going back a couple of steps here. Just like we said that the trial is conducted a number of times to collect the random variable. For the random process also, the trial has to be conducted a number of times. This has to be conducted a number of times, and each outcome is called as a realization. It's not a single outcome, it will be a graph like this. Here I have tried to show, I could not draw a good figure on the PC. This is the first trial indicated by this superscript 1, and I am taking time as the indexing set, because in most vibration problems it is time that changes. So this is the first trial, the value changes like this. This is the second trial, then again this changes like this. Third trial it is changing like this. Like that, there are large number of trials, theoretically infinite. This collection of these, each of these are samples. The first sample, second sample, third sample, fourth sample, and so on. Collection of all possible samples we call as ensemble. This we call as ensemble. So if the ensemble is given to us, we can find the characteristic. Now to indicate the relation between the random variable and the random process, suppose we fix this indexing parameter to T1. We have fixed it at one point or one value. So if we go across the samples with the same value T1, the line is drawn parallel to that axis going inside. And if you look at the outcomes in each sample, each of these outcomes are a random variable, like this one here. This is the realization from the first trial. This is the realization here from the second trial. This is the realization from the third trial. This is the realization from the fourth trial onwards. So these are the values that the random variable xt1 assumes. Once we have frozen the time or the indexing parameter, the process becomes a variable. It is becoming a process because that particular thing is running. So this becomes now frozen, and now it's a random variable. So variables are xt1. All of these are xt1. The first value, second value, third value, fourth value. Each for different outcomes. I hope I've been able to give some idea as to how the random variable is related to the random process. The random process is a generalized form of the random variable. Now, the probabilistic description that we have talked of for the random variable can be extended to the random process. Okay, now let me give some example of different type of indexing parameter. We talked of the wind velocity, so time is an indexing parameter. Like suppose we look at the unevenness along the line on the road. So there no time comes into picture. The road has some unevenness. That height, let us say we measure as h. The indexing parameter here would be the distance along the road. Similarly, distance along the track. If you are looking at a sample of a composite, different layers, then some property of the composite, like say the fiber orientation, that will change over the whole plate. So suppose this is our sample, full plate. Then when we move from point to point, some property will change. The volume fraction will change, the thickness may change, or the fiber orientation will change. So if I take that as a random process, the indexing parameter are the position, x and y. Okay, so like that, depending on the problem, the indexing parameter can be anything. In vibration problems, we take time as when something is oscillating or vibrating, the value changes with time. So without mentioning, we take time as the indexing parameter for vibration, but actually it can be anything. So we can have a multi-parameter random process. So we have to have a probability description for the random process. Now, as I said earlier, when we fix the index to T1, to T2, to T3, the random process will become a random variable. So, okay, suppose we are dealing with a random process x, then in that case, from the same x, that omega is not written, as I mentioned earlier, that omega is dropped out. Only the index is written. So from the same set, this is a random process. I have here x at T1. This is a random variable, x at T2. Another random variable, x at T3. Another random variable. Like this, Tn. These are all random variables, different random variables. But all of these have been generated from the same x. So these we call as a family. So this constitutes a family. And all these random variables, when combined, becomes the random process. So when we look for the probability description, now there are different levels of the description. If you take one alone, then this is the univariate description Px1T1. Here we have taken two time instances. So there are two random variables, Px1 corresponding to T1, Px2 corresponding to T2. This is a typing mistake. These all should be small. These x's should have been small. Because in the argument for the probability density function, we put the state, not the random variable itself. This probability density function, all of these are deterministic functions, not random functions. So here, there is a univariate description. This one is a joint description, like what we described for x and y. So here, x1 at T1, x2 at T2. This is actually the probability density function corresponding to the random process having the value of x1 at the time t1 and simultaneously having the value x2 at the time t2. So, this is the intersection like what we had described for x and y. In place of x and y, we have x1 and x2. So, these are two different random variables, but they are coming out of the same family. So, many times again we put this, give a subscript here, and here we write this with a curly bracket, like this density function is written like this. There is, if there are more than one random process that we are dealing with, you put it like this, then here you can have x1 t1 colon x2 t2 like this. These are all small states. Okay, so to get the full description, you have to have the first order, second order, third order, fourth order, and so on, up to as many orders as possible. One more thing here, there is a symmetry in this description. Like if I write this as p x1 t1 semicolon x2 t2, it will be same as p x2 t2 colon x1 t1. When we interchange their position, there will be no difference. Same thing is true when you define the cross information for two different random variables. But if I write this as x1 t2, x2 t1, then it is not same. Okay, because this value is associated with the time at t1. This value is associated with time at t2. If I write this as x1 t2, then we say that this is the state corresponding to the time t2, and this is the state corresponding to the time t1, then that description would be different. As we again have seen that from the multivariate description, we can always come to the lower one. Like if there are n of these, by integrating it over the full range of x n, we can come up to n minus 1. Similarly, we can come up to n minus 2, n minus 3. So, from this we can always get this information. It is not necessary that all of these should be given separately. If this is given, all the others before this are automatically given. Okay, so just like the probability function or the probability density function or the description function, we can have the expectation, movements, and characteristic function for the random process. The expectation would be like this: x at t1 multiplied by x at t2. And we call this as the correlation, or we call this also as autocorrelation. If there are two different random variables, then the general name is correlation. If it is the same one, then it is auto. The central movement by one bracket is missing here. xt1 minus mu xt1, xt2 minus mu xt2, both of these have that bracket missing. This is the central moment, or we call this as the autocovariance. If these are two different random variables, then it will be just covariance and expressed as kappa. So, this is the way we can describe. Similarly, we can have the characteristic function. Now, I'll just let me see how much is left. Okay, let me take 5 minutes before we go for the break for tea. Now, you see, the idea here is what I have tried to put things in a package, a small package, so that introduces the random process and also shows us how it can be used for vibration problems. So, I don't know how successful I am, because there is a lot of information that goes inside, and there are so many things I am not talking about. But I am just trying to give an exposure that yes, something like this can be done. There are different type of random processes that we describe. One is known as the stationary, other one is known as non-stationary. Now, the stationary term is used when the indexing parameter is time. If it is not time, then we call this as homogeneous. suppose x or y or z or space coordinate is the indexing parameter, then we call a type of random process as homogeneous. Other one would be non-homogeneous. So we have stationary or homogeneous, non-stationary or non-homogeneous. Now this homogeneous process is something which has certain type of stability in its behavior. That stability comes in like this. If we have the hierarchy of this type of family, now if this probability density function or any other probability function does not change with change in the indexing parameter, we call this as homogeneous. Like here, suppose in place of T1, I replace it by T1 minus A. A is any arbitrary number, of course, with the same unit. Then T2 would be replaced by T2 minus A. So what this means is that this probability density function is same as the probability density function x1 T1 minus A, x2 T2 minus A, and like that for any order. So for any arbitrary shift in the indexing parameter, if the probability description does not change, we call that as stationary. Now the advantage it gives is that suppose we take this A as T1, then what will happen here? This becomes 0. So what you will have is the probability description with x1 0, x2 T2 minus T1. I can call this as a delta T. So for the bivariate case, 0 means it is independent of T1. It does not depend on T1. T1 has vanished out of this. And here, in place of T2, it is the difference between the two times. Okay, and that would be true for the higher orders also. So this particular one, if I look for the univariate case, then it is just x1. There is no T coming into picture. Okay, so for the homogeneous process or the stationary process, the first order probability description is independent of time. Second order description has only the time difference coming into picture, and like that for the higher orders. This we call as stationary. If this property is not followed, then it is non-stationary. This property comes when there is some, when the region for making the process random does not change. It is steady. It's like steady state vibration. So if that phenomena is steady, no change coming in to bring the change in the randomness, then the process becomes homogeneous or stationary.